The big question for me about Ice Age is whether or not the filmmakers fairly ask Diego to change his allegiance. You know, in today's world, ethically speaking, that decision to get Diego to do that, it's an interesting one. So let's discuss not just the ethics, the morality of Diego's evolution inside the film, and importantly, the extent to which that evolution is mirrored by humans. The film Ice Age is actually a great animated film to watch, especially if you've got kids. Its perspective is broad, there's a lot of self-referential humour, and a lot of awareness of the context in which it's been produced. It doesn't try to hide troubling behaviours. So there's so much pleasure in discussing how the representations, the characters treat the baby. And that's what I'd encourage you to talk about with your kids afterwards, if that's your taste. It's really funny for adult audiences to watch, and obviously entertaining for kids. There's a real sadness at the end of the film as well. And it's not just because one of the characters appears to die at the end. It's because of a haunting reality that we have to face about what we humans are actually responsible for. Let's start with Scrat. A microcosm of humanity is Scrat, the squirrel rat who opens the film. Scrat's like us, the human. He's not dissimilar from, say, a Sylvester the cat in his attempt to eat Tweety Bird, exclusively, obsessively focused on one idea, fixated on it to the exclusion of its real cost. Now, as such, the squirrel is quite justifiably trying to bury his acorn, as their nature intended, as their DNA programming and the natural law of our world dictates. And in doing so, he causes a crack in the ice shelf, a rift, and it precipitates, if you look at the film, massive change to their environment. This is the first thing I really liked about Ice Age. If we are the squirrel, then what we've done to provide food for ourselves and survive on this planet in all of its harshness is mostly explained through the dictates provided by nature itself, not malevolence on our part. That we have caused damage to the planet, like the squirrel regularly does, is clear and should be addressed. But the film does not reduce that to a desire to destroy the planet driven by rampant greed or some maniacal plot. It doesn't moralize to us. So Ice Age instead explores our nature through now extinct animals. It's a maturely scripted piece and feels like it's written for adults. And this is one of its secrets. It doesn't patronize kids with writing down to them. Its opening lines reveal an ironical self-awareness about the task of writing a comedic script for adults in an animation style for kids. So the first joke, it teases Ice Age theory itself. It actually teases the boomer generation by referring directly to a seminal boomer film called The Big Chill. So the joke is this. The Ice Age production team would have had a meeting about what to call the film, and their preferred title, The Big Chill, was already taken. Now, for the record, The Big Chill, the film, a successful film it was, is about seismic changes in the lives of boomers as they accept their, frigid, barren, and lonely adulthoods, forcibly leaving their youthful dreams behind. Now, it's comparable, metaphorically, to, an Ice Age. Thus, The Big Chill. Now, the next joke is the game being played by the kids in the mud called Extinction, mocking extinction theory. And the third is the evolutionary theory being mocked as Da Vinci tests his theory of flight. This film deliberately reveals its commentary on itself from our current perspective, that its characters possess our modern cynicism, our failings. And the audience is regularly reminded of the fact that they're watching a film made for them. It highlights our historical awareness, our own mature perspectives of our understanding of our past. The film is aware of what happens to many of these animals. They become extinct, but it gives them a sense of humour, their own playful and cynical take on their fate. Most successfully it does this with the dodos. This is the mature pleasure derived from watching this film, its own internal commentary of the attitudes towards the required behaviours of creatures in an actual ice age. Take migration, for example. They provide the film with a cutting-edge modernity. As Toy Story had done before it, animated films were increasingly successfully articulating an adult perspective and attitude in a kid medium. This is a huge part of what explains how animation grew up and generations with it. Manfred swims against the tide. He's a loner and he abandons his herd in preference for solitude. He has all the traits of the old man and states his preference for escaping the noise. Now that's a joke partially based on the size of his ears, but it's also linked to his antisocial character arc. And we don't really understand what that character arc is at the start. But that's very much Manny's challenge at the start of the film. Sid is the teenager. No one wants to be around him. He's a mess. He's a slob. He's unkempt. He's juvenile. There's a lot of naive recklessness as well. And above all, he's overly confident, oblivious to the dangers or realities of the world. And thank God for that. It's Sid who keeps this film interesting and alive and bubbling away. Diego is the plant, the insider, the covert op, the traitor and the redeemer. My favourite character arc. A commonly used archetype in film, he's the knife, the tension, the unknown. And until the end of the film, the audience remains very much balanced on his knife's edge. Now, each of these characters are men, and they're all lonely. The film explicitly makes itself about male loneliness based on their fairly obvious character epithets. So let's analyse why they're lonely. Manny is grumpy and he's stubborn. Sid is slobby and lazy, and Diego is flighty because he's duplicitous. And they've all got an arc that allows them to sort of overcome these epithets. Manny must forgive the hunters for killing his family. To do that, he's got to accept his stubbornness. He's got to accept that he can overcome it. Sid must learn to accept and overcome his lack of desire to be responsible for his actions, and Diego must learn to be honest. So the conversion of Diego is the central concern of this film. It's the most difficult character arc, and it's the most confronting as well. More is asked of him than any other. Diego is encouraged to forsake his own people. So Soto, the alpha of the Sabertooths, is constructed as, and this is where it becomes arguable, is he constructed fairly? Because he's constructed as unnecessarily cruel, expressing a desire to eat the baby alive. So in order to justify Diego's conversion away from his own nature, his own kind, in order to want to become part of not his family, but a new family, who care about each other, the film deliberately gives Diego a more evolved morality based on a fairly primitive morality possessed by the Sabertooths. Is that a fair depiction of the Sabertooths, is my question. Do we think less of cats who keep a mouse alive for fun before killing it? Do we think this is a learned behaviour or an inherited one? So while Soto's desire to seek revenge on the human family may seem unreasonable, the humans are wiping out the saber-tooth colony. And this is also historical reality. Should the cats not defend themselves? Is the manner in which the cats fight back something we look at and say, hey, that's morally reprehensible? So the filmmakers do a good job in creating Diego as having this emerging new sensibility about the role he's required to play. He's required to evolve. Now, the film then holds Diego up and says, this is how you do it. And then it asks whether or not we can do the same. It's Diego who senses Manny's backstory at the cave painting. It's he also who lingers and ponders just what he might be missing. So the final scene reveals much about the film's ideology. Yes, Manny's family was killed by human hunters, and he wanders alone. And he has to confront that in that final scene. But the ending is touched by another reality altogether more troubling, and one the filmmakers get right. We have to contend with the fact that despite Manny overcoming his fears, we also have to accept that humans will not stop what they're doing. They are revealed as having killed half the saber-tooth pack and Manny's family, although they're not necessarily the same hunters. But when Manny returns the baby in the moment between the mammoth and the human, speaks of Manny forgiving the hunters and of the hunters no longer fearing or exploiting the mammoth, the film dares speak of a trust that just might have stopped the mammoth, the saber-tooth, and the giant sloth from becoming extinct in the first place. They ask if humans were up to it. And we know how that worked out. Climate change, yes, the film's last point of discussion, did contribute to the decline of these creatures, but humans were involved. And so the ending of the film is very beautiful, but not just because the baby's returned, it's because we know the hunters won't stop, despite the necklace, despite the baby, and despite the change of heart. In a way, Manny tries to convince our entire race. He converts one of them. Future films in the franchise remove nearly all reference to an awareness of the world outside their own canon and lure. The stories become focused inward, relying on character traits the first film so beautifully establishes. The ambition of the first film to reflect our society meaningfully in the creatures we made extinct, to provide to us a point of view about their essential quality, allows the film to move into the realm of art, where truth and beauty are very apparent. Now, hints of this art can be found in the following films, but none come close to the first.